Crucifixion of Christ, a poem by Mark Parmenter. Down in fair Gethsemane, Jesus came at night to pray. 11 came along with him. He asked his weary friends to stay. He felt an awful agony. He said to them distressed, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." He saw the fate of all the world. He felt the weight of every sin. He fell face down and asked the Father if this cup could pass from him. His blood began to drip like sweat, and down his chest it slowly run. He prayed, "With you it's possible, yet not my will, but yours be done." His friends, they failed to comfort him, for slumbering they lay. "Awake," he said, "the hour is here, the Son of Man has been betrayed." The 12th man came with company, the one that they called Judas. He bade the guards, "Arrest this man," and sealed it with a kiss. They dragged the teacher into court and put him on the stand. They could not prove him guilty, for he was the spotless lamb. And yet he did not speak to his defense or try to make a case. They jeered and screamed and spit on him and beat him on the face. They handed him to Pilate of the Roman high command. They said, "He is a criminal. We want to kill this man." He presented Jesus to the crowds and asked, "Should this man die?" The people, drunk with frenzied rage, all shouted, "Crucify!" His sentence sealed, they threw him down and mercilessly flogged him. They dressed him in a robe and thorns and called him names and mocked him. His skin hung down in ribbons, torn and bloodied from his back. And yet he never once did seek to flee from their attack. Up the road to Calvary, they forced him now to climb. With his cross upon his shoulders, dragging in the dust behind, with violent, jagged nails, they pierced his wrists and feet and hung him up for all to see upon that evil tree. His last small shred of dignity was taken from his bones when they stripped him down to nakedness and gambled for his clothes. A sign was hung above his head. It read, "King of the Jews." His followers watched on with shock as their Messiah was abused. He hung upon that timber frame. He felt the Father's presence leave. His anguished cry rang loudly out, "God, why have you forsaken me?" All the weight of mankind's sin upon the Son was laid. He could not be with Holy Father till the debt was paid. He hung up there for hours, fighting for each burning breath, approaching his great enemy, the all-consuming death. His thirst had burned inside his throat. He called out for a sip, but his cruel and bitter tormentors brought gall up to his lips. And though it was still daytime, the sky became as night. The people gathered round the cross beheld an awful sight, and every sound from all around, except his final cry, diminished as the Savior roared with dying breath to heaven, "It is finished." His eyes gave way to lifeless gaze. His head fell to his chest. The Messiah gave his spirit up. His breath came to a rest. The soldiers pierced the teacher's side with a heavy spear, and as the blood and water flowed, his followers knew only tears. They took his mangled body down from its morbid perch and wrapped him up with linen cloths, frankincense, and myrrh. In an empty cavern underground they lay his head. In full and great obedience, the Lamb of God was dead. 3 days he lay in shadow, and the enemy rejoiced, for the devil thought that he had finally silenced Jesus' voice. His followers were scattered, and they mourned with bitter tears. They felt the sting of wretched death and lived in silent fear. But the grave had met its maker, and the grip of death was broken. The sting was but a fleeting dream. for soon the tomb would open, and the Son of Man would walk again, released from sin's great prison. And he bids us all to follow him to life, for he is risen.